Hey guys, it's Kat and I am back today for the conclusion of my winter project pan. I'm kind of excited to film this because I've had really good results. I didn't expect to have such good results last time I did a check-in, so this is really cool. So if you're not familiar with this series, pretty much what I do roughly every 3 months is create a new project pan sort of targeted for that season. So the reason I do that is because warmer weather, you know, I can use up more like bronzier products. I tend to have oilier skin, so more mattifying products I can use up. And then when it comes to like winter, fairer products, sort of more pink toned products rather than bronzier products. So I like to target it because I find that if I do a whole year's project pan, I'll neglect some products because of the season, like it just doesn't work for my skin or just doesn't work for my coloring at the time. So I've just finished my winter one. So yes, I know if you're in the US or the UK or the Northern Hemisphere, you'd be like, it's just finished summer, but in Australia, it's just finished winter. And my project pan was only for 2 months, so I wanted to sort of catch up. So in this video, I will update from last time, which was the halfway point, like the 1 month check-in, but I will also sort of recap the products that I used up last time as well. So yeah, update and sort of conclusion, round up, all that good stuff. Now with these seasonal project pans, every single season I want to use up a base product and a perfume. Now the reason for that is that I've got a bit of a graveyard going on with old foundations, old perfumes. So I sort of want to use up one a season. So at least by the end of the year, I know that I've cleaned out maybe 4, maybe 5 fragrances and foundations. And I've done that this time around. So I used up my Fenty. This is the Pro Filt'r. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Pro Filt'r Soft Matte Longwear Foundation. You can see that I went through this pretty quickly. So you'll probably see on the screen the progression of it. But when I started, it was about halfway done. And then a month in, I used a quarter of it and now I'm done. So this was a pretty easy one to use up. The reason for it is it's quite liquidy. It's easy to spread all over the face. It's a nice sort of matte finish, but I know if you've got dry skin, you probably wouldn't want this. But for me, it's like perfect for this time of year. And yeah, it was easy to use up. So that's been done. I also used up my Daisy Dream fragrance, and this was also pretty easy to use up. So last time I think it was sort of at the Marc Jacobs line and there wasn't much left to use. So I finished this up I think maybe a week or two, maybe 2 weeks after my last check-in. So for the past couple of weeks I've been sort of working on a fragrance that I think I'll include in my spring project pan. So I've sort of had a head start with that, which was good. So that was really easy to use up. The next product that I thought was super easy to use up was my NYX Micro Brow Pencil. So micro brow pencils really don't contain much product. So if you do dedicate yourself to using it, super easy to use up. I generally use these types of products just to mimic some hairs, but to use this one up, I just sort of like started filling in my brows. And you know, you do that a couple of times a week for a couple of weeks and it's sort of done. So yeah, that was an easy one to use up. Another product that I used up, which I am super surprised that I did, is actually this Holika primer. And when I introduced this in the project pan, it was virtually untouched. This is an airless pump, so it goes up, and I'll put on the screen the progression and I'll sort of explain it. So the first mark is where it was at when I first introduced it, and it had only been used a couple of times. The second mark is the 1 month check-in, and you look at the distance between the first and the second mark, and you go, okay, that's not much use in a month, or it's pretty standard for a primer. How the hell did I then go from this mark to finished in the last month? And I'll tell you how. So one thing I noticed about this primer that I didn't like when I first started using it was that because it is so liquidy, like it's a very hydrating primer, and I found that you would pump it out, you'd put on your hands, smear it on your skin, and you would find that it would sort of move and lift your skincare. So if I've got sunscreen on, which I have every day, I found that this would sort of mix and move it around, and it kind of really irritated me. So what I ended up doing, which I ended up really liking, but it went through it really quickly, was I would put this on a sponge. So my makeup sponge, before I'd do my foundation, I'd actually pump 2 or 3, sometimes 4 pumps of this onto my sponge, and I would sponge it on. So I put a lot more product than I normally would if you'd use your fingers. So if you're using your fingers, you'd maybe do 1, maximum 2 pumps, work it in. But because I was sort of sponging it on, I could put a thicker layer. It wouldn't move my skincare as much, and it really helped hydrate my skin. So I quite liked this. And I found that because I all of a sudden, instead of using 1 pump, I would use 3 to 4. I went through it really quickly. So I don't recommend using primers that way if you want to savor them. Definitely using 1 pump and using your fingers works. But if you are finding that you have a very hydrating primer and you find that, once again, it's too wet or slippery, try using it with your makeup sponge, because it applies really nicely. And if you do want to use it up, if it's a product that's sort of like, I want to use this, but I want to enjoy it, it might be a good way to use these kind of products. So that's how I use this up, and I did enjoy it. Probably not enough to want to buy it again, but yeah, I did like it that way. One that I really struggled with, and I talked about it last time around, was my IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye. It's the illuminating one. I found for me, I find these concealers to be quite tacky and sticky, and they don't set very well on me particularly. So I tried to use this as an eyeshadow base. I really struggled with it. It didn't once you set your base, like with a cream sort of matte shadow, eyeshadows just didn't stick to it. So I mainly use this I actually use this sort of like a color corrector under my foundation. So what I would do, or a concealer under my foundation. So I'd squeeze some of this onto like a sponge. I would put it on under my eyes, around my nose, and then I'd put foundation over the top. And I found that sort of set it better. It didn't look as sort of cakey as it would on its own. So I did use this one up, but it was a bit of a struggle town. So you can see on the screen sort of where I was at when I started, where I was at the 1 month check-in, and you can see that I've now finished it. But the thing is with this, I had a little tool to sort of push down the product. So where the markings were, it sort of looks like I used heaps up in the last month. I really didn't. I didn't have much left to use. So I'm glad to see that gone, actually. Some people love this concealer. That's fine. But it wasn't really something that I struggled with it. I did struggle with it. Another product I used up was the MECCA Cosmetica. This is the Golden Lip Luscious lip balm. So this is an SPF 25 product, so I mainly wanted to use it during the day. I do sort of find these products hard to use during the day, because these are the products that I tend to use at night before I go to bed. But I did finish it up, so you can see that it is done. So there we go. And I mainly use this by having it next to my computer. So whenever I was sort of sitting next to my computer and I'll be like, oh, I could use a lip balm, I would apply it. So I did finish it. It's a nice product. This is a type of lip balm, like I said, I'd use at night, and I kind of forget to use it during the day. But this is one that you really need to use during the day. It's got a bit of like shimmer in it. It's got like SPF 25. So it is a good product. I just forgot to use it. So yeah, I did use that up. Hooray. This happened over the weekend and it was triumphant. So firstly, the bronzer that I've been using is this YSL one. So this is the Palette Couture highlighting powder for the complexion. It's not a highlighting powder. It is sort of like a rosy sort of bronzer, and I have hit pan. So my goal of this was to hit pan, and I have done it. So I will probably, I won't continue to use this right now because it's getting warmer, and sort of warmer toned products suit me better. This is very pink toned. I prefer more like, warmer toned products at the moment. But to use this up, like to hit pan, I was using a big fluffy brush, and I was using a lot of product, and I was taking it down like my neck and on my chest, because it's very hard to use up a bronzer as quickly as I did. When I started this, you can see on the screen, you could see the pan design. I had barely used it. I'd used it a little bit. So the progression, I'm pretty proud of how much I used up, but I really did ramp up how much I used up in the last couple of weeks. So I definitely did sort of overuse this to some degree. And I have found as well, like I am wearing it today and it is quite pink, but I am finding that as the warmer weather is happening and I sort of want to reach for warmer tone bronzers, this is starting to make me look very pink, almost tomato-ish. Like it's nice as like a sculpting blush, which is what I'll probably hold out and use this next winter. But for a bronzer, it's quite pink. So if you're after a pinky bronzer, these are the kind of shades you want to go for. But I'm sort of happy to retire this for next winter. And let's just wait until the sun comes back out, shall we? Time for drum roll. Guess what happened yesterday? I hit pan on my blush. So this blush I've had in my project pan for, I think, 5 months. Is it 5 months? And it has been, I've been wearing this every single day. I've been getting so sick of it that in the last month I've been using it as an eyeshadow as well. So I've been really targeting the middle part so I can hit pan. Now I hit pan on this yesterday and it was funny because I was putting some on and then I was like, look, I can see the sides are starting to like dip a little bit. When is this going to hit pan? And then I sort of tapped my brush in it a couple of times because to use this, you have to tap your brush in it once to use it for like both cheeks. It's very, very pigmented. So I tapped my brush in it a couple of times being like, when if I can hit pan? And then like I saw some pan and I was like, oh my God, it's going to be a good day. So I've hit pan on this, which is great because it's been in my project pan for 2 seasons. And I'm so happy to move on to more peachy blushes, similar to this bronzer. These kind of pinky blushes suit me more in the cooler weather. But now that it's getting a little bit warmer, I'm wanting to reach for more peachy blushes, more sort of like bronzy or even slightly shimmery blushes. So I'm super, super happy. And as soon as I hit pan on this yesterday, which I wore it yesterday, I was like, stop, I'm trying something else. So today I didn't even use it. I'm wearing something else because I want a bit more of a glow and a bit more peachiness. So yeah, so Illamasqua powder blusher in Naked Rose. I love it, but I am happy to put it in a drawer until next year because I've used this almost every day for 5 months and I want something else. Okay, the product that I haven't quite finished, but I feel like is good enough, I think it's good enough, is my Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Powder Duo in dark brown. Now, before I show you my progress, this has like a lighter side and a darker side, and I've had this in my project pan for 2 seasons. Last season, I sort of wanted to hit pan and use up the light side. I did hit pan quite well, but I didn't use it up. And then this season, I wanted to hit pan on the darker side and also use up the lighter side. Now, I sort of half have done that. So there you go. I have nearly finished the light side. There is just a little bit left. So you can see that there is just a little bit left, just hugging around where the dark side is. And you can see the pan that I've hit on the dark side. So I consider that almost done. But yeah, you can see the progression on the screen of how it's been going in this project. And I think I've done a really good job. So even though I didn't finish the light side, I consider it like tick, I've done that. And I was saying that when I have finished the light side, I will throw this out because I don't really use the dark side. But I think in my next project pan, I'm going to bring in a brow pencil and I feel like this might complement it well. So even though I won't continue this in my next project pan, I will keep this around and I will sort of continue to use it until hopefully I've used it up because yeah, otherwise I think the dark brown side once again might wait until next year because as the weather gets warmer, I don't go as harsh with the brows. So yeah, but it's a good product. Last product that I have to update you on, I have barely made any progress with my Colourpop. This is the cream gel color in Swerve, which is the black one. I introduced this a couple of months ago, I think 2 months ago, and I knew that I wasn't going to finish it in 2 months. A gel liner takes ages to use up. I think I used a MAC Black Tracks last year. I think it took me nearly all year. So this is half done and I have been using it. It's just that as the weather gets warmer, I tend to wear liner less. So often I'll just go like a bronze on the eye, curl my lashes, do some mascara. And I only really these days use this when I'm either filming or when I'm going out, which maybe I film a couple times a week, twice a week. So I might only use this twice a week, whereas I used to, or you know, in the cooler months, I tend to wear winged liner maybe 5 times a week. So I haven't been reaching for this too much. So I feel like I do still want to continue this in a project pan because it is drying out. And so I do want to actively use it up. I just am not expecting much from it because it's a lot of product to use in such a short period of time. So yeah, I didn't succeed with this one, but I was expecting it to be a long-term goal. And just to recap as well, the other 2 products that I used up last check-in, I used up a MAC paint pot. No, it was 3 products. A MAC paint pot, which I had used from the previous project pan that had been used up. And I also used up a Concrete Minerals loose eyeshadow that I used as a highlighter. That was a beautiful highlighter. Kind of miss it, but that's used up. And I also used up the Pixi Glow Mist that I only really used up some of it and then it broke and cracked. So yeah, so I've used up quite a lot of products. Okay, so what I normally do after I film these conclusions is I jump straight into filming a video on introducing my next project pan, which is my spring project pan. So we're already a couple of weeks into spring. We're nearly at the end of the first month of spring. So this next project pan will go into December anyway and sort of be the end of this year's project pan. But what I've decided to do to give myself a little bit of room to breathe is actually spend a couple of days deciding what products I want to use up next in spring and then film it next week. So my next video is not going to be the introduction of my spring project pan. It will come next week. And it gives me a bit of time to suss out what I want to use because I feel like I've been really good at using up products recently to the point where I'm like, I don't actually know what I want to use up next. Usually these project pans have about 12 or 13 products in them, but I feel like maybe I might introduce some skincare instead of just makeup because I don't want to start another blush. I don't want to start a new bronzer. I feel like, you know, it's going to take a few months to hit pan on those. So I need to, really gather my thoughts on what products do I want to target in spring, and I might work in some skincare as well, which is not what I usually do, but I might do that to pad it out a little bit. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you're doing a project pan, I hope you are doing well. I know it's hard to do. I know you can lose sight of why you're doing it, but stick with it. And hopefully you can hit pan on some blushes because it makes you feel really good. Okay, while the sun is going down, I will see you next time, and my next video will be my empties. So if you want to see sort of would I repurchase these sort of products that I've used up, I'll let you know in my empties. So see you then. Bye guys.